Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another session of Intro into Storyboarding, presented to you by Leon, a tutor here at Media Savvy. Okay, so hello everyone for all the guys who are logged in at the minute. This is fourth session of 5 sessions, and basically for those of you who haven't been a part of these sessions yet, we have 5 sessions, and it's just a brief overview on storyboarding, industry hints and techniques on how to construct a storyboard, what a storyboard is, and some of the major components to creating a storyboard, and the applications and tools that we use to construct storyboards. Okay, so we've covered quite a lot of ground over the last 3 weeks. If we just go back, you guys can see my screen there. If we quickly go back and just have a quick look at what we've covered, let's have a quick look. Here we go. Yeah, so we're currently on session 4 at the minute. In the first session, we looked at audience and the importance of catering towards to an audience when creating your storyboard. Session 3, we then moved into shot lists and storyboards, and we done a live storyboarding activity. Going back to session 1, and we also looked at shot types as well, which has been a common theme throughout the last 3 sessions. We always link back to shot types because they're quite important, and they will feature a little bit in our session 4 today. Session 3, we looked at the story and the character, and we looked at how to use emotion, and what types of emotion there may be to invoke interest in your storyboard. So session 4, we're moving on to suspense and drama today, and we've got a really good session planned for you today. We've got a chat with a senior lecturer at Sunderland University, and he's going to come on in about 25 minutes, and we're going to have a little informal chat about the types of things he looks at teaching his students on his course. He'll be covering some of the ground that we've already covered on storyboards, just to kind of reiterate its importance within the industry. And we are also going to look at trying to get tips from Ian as to how we can dramatize and generate suspense when we are forming our storyboard. So we've got a cracking session set for you guys today, and as always, we really welcome your interaction with us. Okay, so if you have any questions for Ian in 25 minutes time, please whack them in the chat. I'll keep my eye out on the chat there, and I'll make sure I ask Ian any questions that might be related to what we're doing or we've covered on this course. That'd be fantastic. Please just let us know. And let's just get started and have a quick look at some of the fundamentals. Okay, fundamentals being our enrollment forms. So we've got a session enrollment form for you guys. As always, and as I always reiterate at the beginning of the session, this is really important because this course has been put on by the National Lottery, and in order for us to get our funding, we need to demonstrate that we are catering to learners, and we have a very brief enrollment form here that captures just a few little bits of information just to demonstrate that you're engaging with our sessions and that you are improving your subject knowledge. Okay, if you look at here, section 2 here, subject knowledge at the start of the session, grade 1 to 5, halfway through the session, 1 to 5 again at the end. So as a tutor and when we're learning, we hope to build upon our knowledge, and that's what we aim to do. So that's really key for us to put these sessions on for you guys. So if you wouldn't mind filling that in, perfect. That'd be absolutely fantastic. And like I say, it doesn't take too long at all. Moving on, we have a survey. Now, every session, or at the end of every session, or at the beginning of the next session, when I'm doing my session preps, I always look at the feedback. Feedback is vitally important for us because it makes us tailor our sessions towards you guys. So please feel free to fill that in. Just click on the link on our presentation here, which will be available at the end on our YouTube channel. And the feedback is basically capturing your basic information again, and just gives us a little insight as to what your thoughts and feelings were for the session. All right, so there we go. I'm just going to set myself a little task today because I've noticed I've mentioned the word session quite a few times. So I'm going to see if I can avoid using that word because it's getting on my nerves already. Right, so that's the feedback. We've covered the enrollment form. Let's move on. All right, so the last class we looked at emotion, okay? And if I quickly rewind very, very, very quickly, we looked at a character, characters. We looked at the story, and we looked at emotions and feelings. And I broke down 4 basic emotions as fear, happiness, sadness, and anger. And we look at using these within our storyboards to generate some kind of as a way of negotiating the story that we're trying to tell. I pointed you guys to a few of my favorite little films, one of them being Inside Out. Let me know if any of you guys managed to watch that over the weekend or this week. Brilliant film. Then we looked at the story and all the components to the story, and emotions is just being part of that those ingredients to bake that cake or produce that storyboard. And we talked about the transitions between each emotion and how to convey that. Bear with me 1 minute. Convey that realistic impression of negotiating different emotions within our storyboard. Okay, a quick one here. We talked about punctuation as well. Punctuation was really a really cool little tip that I picked up when I was doing our prep for the last classes, kind of last sessions. I said it again. Last sessions prep work. So punctuation in the story is always important because it allows that information to settle with the audience. What else did we look at? We looked at The Pursuit of Happiness, one of my favorite films, and I purposely showed you a scene in The Pursuit of Happiness that was at the end of the session, or at the end of the film, and then I proceeded to use the activity that we tend to do in our sessions. Proceeded to use use the activity to explain and describe the main character, who was Chris Gardner. Any of you guys got any feedback on that film? If you watched that last week, please let me know. It's one of my favorite films. Let's have a just quick look at the chat here. Inside Out, Susan, I think is a Disney film. I think it might be. Let's have a quick look. Yes, it is. Disney Pixar. There you go. Okay, so that's where we're at with that. Oh yeah, we also talked about sprinkling a little bit of laughter to kind of lighten the load of that story. So that's that. We've done our little activity. Fast forward a little bit. Oh yep. Also, pointed you in the direction of different pieces of information that you might want to check out. We looked at the NHS mental health page, where it had information about symptoms and feelings. We had a look at some more storyboarding hints and tips on a website called wave.video. Also found a really cool little thing on Pinterest, which pointed me towards this here, that talked about the different ways we can use different ways to calm down if we're feeling a little bit stressed or anxious or anything like that. So I found that, I came across that, thought that was good, so I thought I'd share that with you guys as well. Any of you guys, if you've any of you have looked at that, please let me know. I'd love to know what your feedback is on that. And then the final thing that I pointed you guys towards at the end of last session was the free learning, which was on the Open University. There are thousands of courses on there. If you guys got a bit of time and you're really interested in development or learning something new, that's really, really good. Okay, so back into today's session. Right, so this is the storyboard from the last week, and this was a storyboard that I used as the activity to communicate who the character Marcus, it's Chris Gardner, sorry, not Marcus, Chris Gardner from The Pursuit of Happiness. That's who the film is based on. So I used a if anybody can tell me what these boxes are, what the technical term for these boxes are, that would be great. This is a little bit of a test of your knowledge from session 1. So I done 4 by 3, 4, 8, 12 boxes, and I used that as a challenge to put a little bit of background information into who Chris Gardner was and the type of things that happened in his life that led up to that final scene that I showed you prior to tackling that activity. Right, so we've got about 10 minutes before Ian joins us. So what I did do is I found a few little quizzes that I would like to point you to, and I'm going to have a look through those. I'm just looking at my notes from last week to see if there's anything that I've missed. Yeah, any general comments from last week? That's where have we gone? I've gone a little bit. Oh, I'm going too far ahead there, guys. What's happening here? There we go. Right. Any general comments from last week? That would be greatly appreciated, and don't forget to fill in our feedback form for that as well. Right. Let's have a quick look. Right, brilliant. Okay, I was just looking at the chat there. Right, one thing I found a few months ago now was this website called Quizlet. Okay, and I had a quick look today, the other day, to try and think of some new resources for you in preparation for today's class. And Quizlet is a fantastic resource if you're trying to learn something. Okay. My sister is currently at university, and she uses this as a learning resource to study. And what you can do with this on this website is you can create a free account, and you can create your own flashcards. You can create your own little tests, and you can share it with people, and create little study groups and things like that. The reason why I'm telling you about this today is that I came across a storyboarding one. Okay, I didn't do this. It's already online. Somebody's already created this, and I thought we'd have a quick look through this, see if we can find our way through some of these slides. Okay, so describe. So why are storyboards used? Let's have a look. To describe a scenario visually. Yeah, so that's what we've kind of covered in the over the last few sessions. Why are storyboards used? Yeah, we know that. What is described in a storyboard? So if you remember from a few weeks ago, we talked about those boxes, which I would like somebody on our chat there to give us a quick give us the name of that box. Begins with P. What is described in a storyboard? Okay, so we have the task that someone is trying to accomplish. That is absolutely correct. Yeah, that's exactly what is included in the storyboard. Is there anything else that's included in the storyboard that that's not mentioned in this little flashcard here? What are the common mistakes do storyboards try to prevent? Now, I thought this was a really interesting question because it talks about the tendency to focus on the UI before the task. Now, I I thought this was really interesting because it makes us the storyboard as a general rule of thumb. If you can go back from the last couple of sessions, it's about us getting down the story and putting it in some kind of order. Now, to get really focused on the nitty gritty of how we're going to present that information is can be a good way of doing it, but the first the first stage to creating your storyboard is to really get your idea out and make sure it's telling the story in as clear way as possible. So in answer to this question here, on this answer here, you don't really want to get into the nitty gritty straight away. You want to get your story organized so you're telling the right story and there's no kind of ambiguity with your story. How is a storyboard used later in the design process? Let's have a look, see what it says here. To show the problems previously described have all been overcome in the new design. So, for example, when I was chatting to Ian, who's going to be featuring on this session in the next 5 minutes, he mentioned that it was a really good way of budgeting and planning your film. So, storyboarding there is a good way to kind of iron out all those creases. You're not going to get them all ironed out, but you're going to iron out a lot of those creases when it comes to filmmaking or planning a story. If you're writing a story, it might be a very useful tool to if you're writing a novel or something, but it might be a very useful tool to use in order to get your story out there on paper. Okay, so that's Quizlet. There's a few more slides there. I'm not going to bore you with the next 20 odd, but if you are learning anything new, and if you are looking at a new way of learning and you're learning with other people, Quizlet is a cracking little resource there. Okay, and the link is on our presentation that will be available to you. Okay, now that's where we're at with this session. This is what we're going to do today. Now, before we catch up with Ian, we're going to have a quick look at what is suspense. Okay, so that's the main focus on today's session. What we want to try and do, and if you think about all the films and all the documentaries and all the different things that we engage with when we're talking about the visual arts, it generates an interest and it generates suspense. It makes you want to learn a bit more about what's going on. And when it comes to storyboarding, you really want to be able to generate some suspense so you can keep your audience hooked. Now, if we quickly rewind, I'm just reminding myself now, if we quickly rewind to last week, we did look at this little idea, wasn't it? It's like the kind of the carrot dangling in front of the audience, and it's trying to give them a little bit of information, but not too much. And you're directing the story and telling them what you want them to know, but you're not giving away too much. Because if you give the audience the answer at the beginning of the story, then there's nothing for them to watch and they'll tune off. You want to give them a little bit of suspense to keep them engaged and keep them interested. So let me just quickly fast forward back to where we are today. So when we look at what suspense is, it's a case of holding something back, holding some information back from the audience, and just giving them little hints as to what that story is. Now, can anybody on our chat, give us any good examples on any films or any dramas that they've watched recently that kind of hold some information back. One comes to mind, which I'm going to talk to you about in a little bit later. But these are the kind of tips that I've picked up this week when I've planned for the day, and there seem to be 5 really common themes or tools that we use in our storyboarding to create that suspense. Okay, music is one, and that's really key when it comes to say horror movies, for example. That suspenseful music, or anything that's trying to like G you up and trying to get you all excited about something. Music plays a massive part in that. The actor themselves, and them displaying their emotion, and how they are reacting to a scene, that forms part of the suspense. We look at extreme decisions, so the character making extreme decisions, kind of keeps us intrigued and gets us to think about what's going to happen next. And then we looked at I came across this area here, this item called where it refers to space, and it's talking about the space within the scene, the camera shots, the camera movement, things like that. And I've got all this information off a really, really good website called it's called rrfed.com. So rrfed.com, and they break down that in a little bit more detail as to how we create suspense in our stories. And time. Okay, we talked about time before, punctuating that story, and letting the audience have time for the information to settle in, or shortening that time, depending on what kind of effect you're trying to do. So these were really good tips that I picked up this week, and again, that link will be on our presentation. You can have a look at that. Now, another big tip that I picked up this week was controlling the information. And as a storyboarder, or somebody who's creating a storyboard, we are that kind of magician. We are that director, one giving out the information and controlling what kind of information that people have. Okay, so in the story, we really need to work out who's getting the information and when they're getting it. Like I said a few minutes ago, we're not going to give the audience everything at the very beginning. Otherwise, there's going to be no suspense, no interest, and the audience is going to tune out. We need to decide whether we're giving the audience some information, whether we're giving the characters some information to work off, or we're giving both the audience and character and we're discovering something together. But we need to be clear on who's getting what information, and when they're getting it. Okay, so that's something we need to consider when we're creating our storyboards. So going into that a little bit deeper, who gets to know what? Okay, I broke it down into 3 simple little areas. Now, this is not the be all and end all. This is just something that I've picked up when I've done my prep for the day. But to make it simple, we've got the audience gets to know the answers first. We get the actor in the story gets to know the answers, and we are kind of held in the dark as an audience, or the audience. And after that, we watch the the audience watches the character get the answers. Okay, so I've got a couple of examples of that. Okay, and the first one being, let's have a look. Let's have a look here. Audience gets to know the answers. I'm not going to show that one because what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you this one. one example of the audience getting to know the answers. Use the film, The Truman Show. Okay, so The Truman Show, for you, those of you who don't know, it's an insurance salesman whose whole life is actually a reality TV show, and he doesn't know about it. Okay, so let's quickly watch this little clip on The Truman Show.
Building a smart marketing strategy has never been this easy. Use SEMrush trends.
This ad for a minute, and this will give you a good insight as to what I mean by the actor or the character within the story getting to know the information, and we already know the information as an audience. Now let's just skip that, and I'll put that on for you guys, and we'll just quickly watch this for a couple of minutes before we get Ian on.
Still headed.
What else is on?
Yeah, let's see what else is. Coming to you now from the largest studio ever constructed, it's The Truman Show!
Yeah!
Good morning!
Good morning.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
What if? No scripts, no cue cards.
Morning, Spencer. How's it going?
What if you were watched every moment of your life?
How many cameras you got there in that town?
5,000.
I believe Truman is the first child to have been legally adopted by a corporation.
That's correct.
Brilliant.
What if everyone you knew was pretending?
Hi, honey. Look what I got at the checkout. Dishwasher safe.
That's amazing.
What if your world was make-believe?
Cue the sun. While the world he inhabits is counterfeit.
I'm not allowed to talk to you.
That's how I look. Not your type. There's nothing fake about Truman himself.
What if you didn't know it? Until now.
A lot of strange things have been happening. Stand by ring cam.
Is he looking at us?
Does he think he knows?
I think I'm mixed up in something.
Something big. We accept the reality with which we're presented.
Everybody's pretending, Truman. Get out of here. Come and find me. Truman? Truman!
Anything happen?
No.
You may find yourself in another part of the world.
Feels like the whole world revolves around me. Everybody seems to be in on it. I'm going away for a while.
You may tell yourself, this is not my beautiful wife.
Okay, people. So yeah, that's a really good example. I felt it was. I haven't watched that film for ages, but I really enjoyed it, and it was it's one of my top films. It's quite an interesting story, and as you can see by the trailer, it gives you a little insight as to how that story unfolds. Okay, and that is really a good example of how us, the audience, knows what the answer is, and the characters learning about it. Now, if you just bear with me 1 minute, I'm going to set up our chat with Ian today. Give me a shout, guys. I'm going to get Ian on now. Give me a shout if you've got any questions for him in terms of what we're learning today. Okay, just bear with me 1 minute while I set myself up. And hi Ian, how's it going?
Hi man, how you doing? You all right? Can you hear us?
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm new to all this, mate. So you'll have to bear with me. There we go. Yeah, brilliant. So welcome to the session today. And I'm gonna give you a 50 pence for every time you hear me mention the word session, because that seems to be the word of the day at the minute. But yeah, what we're doing today is we're just looking at suspense in storyboarding and how we can generate suspense. But I believe you've got some really basic fundamentals that you showed me earlier this morning about what you teach at the university when it comes to storyboarding. Could you just tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, of course, no problem. Are the students on, by the way, Leon, or are we just recording, by the way?
We've got a few students on, and we're live. We're streaming live.
Oh, okay, cool. That's brilliant. Right, guys. Yes, so I'm Ian. I'm a senior lecturer at the University of Sunderland, and I teach filmmaking. Basically, that's my main sort of area of interest, as well as doing it in my actual job. So we teach students to make short films, to make music videos, to make sort of factual pieces of work. And we go through the stages of pre-production, production, and then post-production. So obviously this area today, storyboarding in particular, which Leon's mentioned, that's one of the key areas of pre-production. And that is when you're planning your production, when you're developing your production, when you're working on a script, when you're coming up with shot lists and finding locations, buying props, buying costumes. But yeah, storyboarding is sort of like a key element of that. And it's sort of like visually how the director is, well, it's their early planning into sort of visually working out what the production is going to look like. Obviously, they kind of do that later on when they're filming. One of the key things to filmmaking is the planning, which is in pre-production. So what we try and tell the students is the more planning you do, the more thorough you are in pre-production, the better your filming and the better your post-production. So your editing will go as well, and ultimately you'll have a stronger project from that. But yeah, sort of storyboarding, shot lists, it's all key to the sort of planning stage of creating a film. And yeah, that's what we try and communicate to our students at the University of Sunderland, and obviously what Leon is trying to communicate with you today.
That's brilliant, Ian. Cheers, thanks for that. When it comes to tools that your students use to construct a storyboard, what kind of tools do you kind of encourage at the university?
Yeah, well, initially in industry, and just for storyboarding in general, it came down to sort of raw artistic talent, aka can you draw or not? So over the years, I've created many horrific storyboards myself because I cannot draw. Terrible. And I've marked some storyboards from students that are stick men and all that sort of thing. But occasionally, you come across a project, a student project where the person in the group who works on the storyboards is brilliant. Mm-hmm. So initially, Leon, it's if someone in the group can draw, if someone has artistic talent, and they can kind of create the visuals, the shots, just with pen and paper. Originally, that's kind of how it's traditionally done, and how it's traditionally done. Obviously now there's different bits of software that you can use, and if students cannot really draw, and they're struggling, such as myself, as I say, there's bits of software, and one piece of software that I've used before is FrameForge, which is very easy to use. It's great to create a 3D environment. You can put walls in there, you can put characters in there, you can put those characters in different positions, you can place props, and what is key about it is you can place a number of cameras in that 3D environment, and you can see the view through those cameras, and you can zoom in, you can pull back out, you can have a wide lens, you can have a tighter sort of zoom lens, and you can boom up, you can boom down, because you can place these cameras in any place within this 3D environment, and you can take snapshots and you can record footage, and that is how you do storyboarding through software as well, which is it's then morphed a bit into sort of pre-visualization, so creating like a bit of an animation, a rough animation of what the film might actually look like when you create it. So technology's moved on a lot, but its most fundamental level, it's like, can you draw, can you create these storyboards?
Well, that's really interesting you said that, because that was when I first took on this project to deliver these 5 sessions. My drawing is an example of it. It's not very good at all, terrible, especially when you're sketching like live and you're trying to show people an idea. And my concern was that I'm not very good at drawing like quickly and sketching very quickly. And it was quite reassuring to see a lot of people in the industry actually who aren't like these fantastic artists. I mean, obviously there's some fantastic examples out there where like there's examples of like kind of Jurassic Park storyboards and stuff like that, where there's some phenomenal like bit sketches there. But there's also some artists, like I think Scorsese, I came across Scorsese, and I think you were going to talk about him a little bit more, where it was more simple sketches, and it's quite reassuring to see that you don't need to be an artist or Picasso to get across your idea and communicate your story.
I mean, I think it doesn't have to it doesn't have to take loads and loads of time. I think you can do it. You know, if you're a great artist and you want to spend a lot of time planning it and working on storyboards, then you can. Or if you're a filmmaker and if you want to employ a storyboard artist, which is an actual role in industry, you'd employ somebody to do it, and you would work with that person to create your like ideal storyboards. But I was on a session with Ridley Scott a few days ago that was open up to the students at the university and through Northern Film and Media, and he's a bit of a sketch artist, and he kind of came from that. That was his background. Yeah. So when he's planning a film, he creates a number of sketches as well. But he does it really quite quickly and like really fast. So storyboarding can be like that. If you can sketch quickly and can create almost quite cartoony images, that's a good way. It doesn't have to be a masterpiece. You don't have to show that many people. You're just probably going to show your cast and crew actually. It's just to communicate your vision. So so if you've got a camera operator who's saying, well, where do I put the camera? Or where are we going to put the camera on the first day of filming? So you might show them your storyboard as well as having a shot list. You say, well, actually the camera's going to go there in this location and your actor is going to be there. So it's going to be a wider lens, for example. So you're working out the relationship between the camera and the actor. It's often that. And it can be quite technical. You can see working out what lens to put on. If there's any sort of, is it an evening scene? Is it getting dark or is it quite light? Is it sunny outside? So you're getting into sort of like exposure of shot as well. But for storyboarding, you can go into as much detail or as minimal detail as you want. I don't know if you've seen, there's a good documentary on the Lord of the Rings. And when Peter Jackson was creating those 3 films, he worked with a storyboard artist, and they kind of show you this fantastic like book that's like it's like that thick. And it's those 3 films completely storyboarded with just the most like amazing artwork that you'll ever see. It's absolutely fantastic. So you've got that at one end of the scale, and then the other end of the scale is stickman and sketched figures that are done like really, really quickly. As long as it works for you and your cast and crew on a production and gets the message across that visually this is how it's going to look, then that's fine.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head there, talking about communicating your vision, isn't it? Because that's what it is. It's all about. It's getting that story out there, isn't it? From your head onto paper or somewhere that other people can see it. So I think that's really, really key there. In terms of, say, in general terms, obviously you've gone into quite a bit of detail there, and I'm sure you could talk for hours about this subject. But in terms of like the basic kind of hints and tips, if you could like say you're going to give 5 tips in creating a storyboard, what people need to consider, what would you say those 5 things would be?
5. Okay, a couple of tips. Well, the storyboard it's like a visual translation of a script. Okay. So firstly, you have to have, if you want to practice this out, just write, a page of a script maybe, or like even if it's not a script, it could just be like a paragraph of a story maybe. Well, actually, this, but if you think of it in like cinematic terms, which is what I do to my students, say you're going to create like a 20-second film, for example. Okay, and write that down in sort of a script sort of format. Fade in, interior, scene 1, kitchen, for example. And if they just create a really sort of a very brief sort of and simplistic script, and then as practice, right, you've got that. Maybe it's half a page of A4 even. You've got that and say, right, well, actually, let's practice storyboarding this.
Right, okay.
So maybe in that half a page, or maybe it's a full page of A4, you're starting to visualize it in your head. All right, so you're thinking, right, well, if we're going to shoot this as a film, so establish and shot. So maybe, where is the location? As we said, is that in a wide shot of a kitchen, maybe in a house, or is it a wide shot of a playing field, or... inside a music shop? It could be anything. So storyboard number 1, so sketch maybe, that establishing shot location, and then maybe you've got an actor in there. If it's a record store, looking through a couple of records. So maybe you practice. You could cut to like a medium shot of them, or a wide shot, even standing at the records and sort of like penciling through, and then your storyboard, and then you might move on to like a medium shot and a close shot, and then their hands kind of like fumbling through. And so I think the first sort of tip is just to practice going through that process.
I think that's a really, really good good tip that I haven't come across when prepping for these sessions. Writing it down. That's probably, and especially for the people who are a bit more kind of scared to put pen to paper to draw, to actually just write it down whichever way you want it. That's a really, really good first stage. I think that's a really good idea. Yeah.
I think you've got to have something to work from.
Yeah.
And I think what's totally cool is in the practicing of this, you don't have to work with anybody. You don't have to show anybody at all.
Yeah.
You know, you can just be at home yourself. You can say, well, I'm just going to come up with this scene in a music store. I don't know why I'm saying music store, but in a music store, you know, there's someone kind of thumbing through all these records, and they find it, wow, they found the record they've been looking at for years. And maybe that's your story.
Yeah.
So I think what is key is that you come up with that firstly, and then you move on to the storyboarding aspect of it, because I think you have to have the idea first.
Yeah.
You're just going to draw storyboards. Essentially, it's always been like a cartoonist, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're going to create the content from the storyboard, whereas in filmmaking, if that's the area my area that I'm coming from, you have the idea and you have the script first, and then the storyboard comes from that. Yeah, the script is like it's a blueprint of what the film is going to be, and then the director's thinking, how do I visualize that? Okay.
Yeah.
Storyboarding is one way you will do that. You know, and then shot list, which is a bit more technical. That's a way to do that as well. But certainly, I think if sort of like a tip is just to start with an idea, come up with a scene in your mind, and then start from that. So it's in your head, and then you're going to put it on paper as a script, and you're going to sort of try and visualize that, you know, artistically in terms of creating it. And the thing is, it doesn't have to be that artistic, as we said. It can just be little sketches, sort of stickmen type style, but you're thinking about how big the shot is, the characters, is it really close up of someone's face, of their hands, they're thumbing through the records, or is it wide shot, or is it something in between that, you know? So I think tip one is have a source material to start off with, which is your 1 page of A4 script.
Yeah, brilliant. Okay, maybe not 5 of them, but let's say another couple of quick tips. Have you got any?
And a couple of quick tips.
Yeah.
I think just practicing drawing those images.
Yeah.
I mean, as I say, I cannot really draw at all.
Yeah.
But I kind of know what I want from a storyboard.
Yeah.
I can kind of put that down enough, to visualize that. So I think practice sketching and practice drawing a little bit. You don't have to be any good, as long as you can get your information down there and communicate that to potentially to somebody else. All right.
Well, now that you mentioned that, we some of the guys who tuned into this a few sessions ago, there was I forgot the director's name, but it was a sketch artist who was doing a storyboard for Wreck-It Ralph, and her sketches were absolutely fantastic. But what you're saying is, in terms of practicing, you could tell she wasn't scared. Like she would do a panel for one of the storyboards, just cross it out, move on to the next one, and then it was so like dynamic and so like free. She was, you know, in order to get that story from her head onto a piece of paper. It was great, you know. She wasn't concentrating on like the nitty gritty details. She was just like getting out there, and then she moved from that stage where it was just loads of the story loosely on paper, and then she would refine the drawing. So I guess that practice kind of helps you refine your story along the way as well, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think just like practicing and going over something again and again and again is that's how you learn, isn't it?
Yeah.
Almost you have to make mistakes, and you don't want to make mistakes when you're actually working on something, you know, because then that might be more difficult to sort of fix. But if you practice and almost rehearse something in your own time, it's like if you want to learn like drums, for example.
Yeah.
If you want to be a drummer, you've got to practice at that.
Yeah.
Want to be a filmmaker, you got to practice at that. You can't just pick up a camera and be, well, you can pick up a camera and be a filmmaker, but if you want to be a good filmmaker, usually you've got to kind of go through that process again and again and again, and make your mistakes and learn from those mistakes and hone your craft.
Brilliant.
So I think practice is absolutely vital to everything. If anybody wants to be good at anything, I think people can be good at anything really, if you put your mind to it. But you got to practice it. It just depends how much hunger and you've got for it and how much you want to do it. So if I wanted to be an amazing drummer, I'd work at that over and over and over for years to try and get amazing. You've got to have the dedication and you've got to put the time in. So if you want to be a good storyboard artist, you've got to practice it, I would say. The cool thing is, a lot of people might have already practiced it without really knowing it, because people just like sketching and drawing anyway. They've already been doing that. They've practiced it already, So I think practice is probably tip number 2.
All right, then, and then say to kind of, I appreciate you're quite busy, man. So I don't want to take up much more of your time. Say the tip 3. The topic of this session today, Ian's about creating suspense, and I've highlighted a few different things that I've pointed out to our viewers already, but. Any ideas or any tips that easy tips that we could apply to our storyboards to create that suspense and drama within our story?
That's a tricky one. I think one thing that students need to do is, as well, just getting onto that, is kind of know like shot sizes and types of shot composition. So if you're moving into this if you're approaching this storyboard area from a filmmaking perspective and you want to make a short film, and if you're going to storyboard, if you're going to get somebody to storyboard for you, you've got to know your shot sizes. I've mentioned some of these already, so you've got to know. What I say to my students is you've got a filmmaker's toolbox and you've got loads of compartments in that filmmaker's toolbox. And one compartment is storyboarding. And you open that compartment up and it's right. If you're going to storyboard, you've got types of shots in films, haven't you? So you've got your establishing shots. You've got your wide shots, medium shots, close shots, extreme close-up shots, Dutch tilt, where the horizon's off like that. And you've got over-the-shoulder shots. You've got moving camera shots as well. There's you've got high angle, you've got low angle. So there's loads and loads of stuff. So another tip is to know what they are. And you know what? You can just Google those really easy. If anyone's on Studio Binder, which is like a bit of it's a great website for filmmakers. There's videos. There's so much great technical stuff and story information about being creative and learning the craft. So students need to know what they're going to have in their toolbox. So you need to know all those shot sizes. And essentially it's choices. So are you going to start a scene? So again, if you think, Leon, about creating tension, okay, do you start your scene with the wide shot, or do you start your scene with a close-up shot of the hands fumbling through the records, frantically trying to look for the perfect record, and this person has to have this record, and it's a close-up shot like that, then you cut to a shot on the face. Storyboard number 2, maybe sweat coming down the face, eyes are intently looking at the collection of records. So it's kind of like learning how to place shots together to create that tension.
That's really, really interesting, that, because even you describing that makes me feel a little bit tense describing those scenes, whereas if it was a more of a establishing shot like you described it previously, and it's showing the actual record shop, then I didn't feel that tension. So you just quickly describing that now actually shows you how important those shot types are when it comes to assembling your storyboard. That's the sort of, as a director, you got to think, well, here's the scene on paper. Again, you've got your script. How best to, filmmaking is really about how do you keep the audience totally vested from the start to the end. How do you keep them totally interested for the full duration? I guess the sign of a bad film or a bad filmmaker is if the audience get bored and they switch off and they walk out the cinema, or they turn the channel over,
or whatever it is. So the sign of a good filmmaker is, yes, you keep your audience involved for the full duration.
Yeah.
And through storyboarding and planning and a good script and good acting and all those areas as well, how do you keep them fully interested in the full film? And in this example, particularly this scene, so if someone's frantically looking through records, right? Well, how do we start with that? How do we begin that?
Yeah.
You know, how do we get the audience invested straight away so they feel the tension? I mean, you know, in this scene, maybe there's a second person who's also looking for that golden record, this really rare record, you know, from like 50 years ago, that there's only a few copies left in circulation. You know, so someone's maybe eyeing them across the aisle because, oh God, that person's got they're thumbing through the record that I want. And then you can create tension in that way as well, that there's a threat and there's somebody else looking for that thing as well.
You know, that's funny because when you break down like the industry and all the different components to the industry and a film, it makes you. You probably don't do this because you're part of the industry, but you know, for the layman who sitting there watching a film and goes, "Oh, that film's crap." Like, there's so many different like ingredients that go into that. So the filming might be really good, or the story might have went bored and might have been excellent, but the acting might have let it down or whatever. There's so many different layers to a film, isn't there? Like, it's just amazing. Like, all of them have to like spin together in like simultaneously, you know, without any of those plates smashing on the floor, to kind of create a fantastic overall film.
Yeah, you've got like a multitude of elements there, and you're right. If one of those things, you know, maybe, you know, it could be your lead actor is poor.
Yeah.
You know what? If everything else is good, your direction, your script, how it's shot, how it's cut together, your sound, your score, all those things can be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
But if one of those things isn't right, so maybe it is the actor, or any one of those things. If one of those things isn't right, and they take the audience out of it, and the audience are not interested or they're distracted in some sort of way, that's affecting the viewing experience. And to be honest, I mean, that's why every film that you see isn't a 5 out of 5 film. You know, that's why. Well, I like that film, but thought the ending wasn't very good. I like that film, but you know, that actor was a bit rubbish and kind of put me off a little bit. Or I thought that scene was a bit weakly written. There's so many things that can go wrong. And it's easy to make a bad film. You know, it's easy to make a bad film, but and it's really difficult to make a good film. You know, but that's why you see from top directors, often you see, you know, they'll have a number of brilliant films, but then they'll have some films that maybe aren't quite as good, or they're a bit problematic, you know. But then the next film is maybe fantastic, because there's so many variables to the whole thing, and it just takes one or two elements that, you know, in hindsight, maybe the filmmaker will think, yeah, we got that wrong. We shouldn't have cast that person, or maybe we didn't. We needed a few more drafts of the script, and then we worked from a later draft instead of like, you know, working from draft 15. They, you know, maybe they should have continued and worked from draft 18 and really refined and honed things a bit more. There's many things can go wrong, and it's like, I think we have everything creatively though, particularly if it's like a group of people, and it's quite a big enterprise, there's a number of things can go wrong. And that's, to be honest, I think that's why a lot of people love it, because it's a huge challenge making something really good. You know, so the students at university, we're trying to get them to make content that, you know, 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes long that's good. And then if they want to go into features and you know, and longer form and longer running times, obviously if they can learn to do that with a short running time, then they can maybe put that towards longer sort of productions as well, where it's even more difficult.
Wow, that's awesome. Right, Ian, just quickly wrap up our session there and find out what is it that you're doing at the minute. Have you got any projects on, or you mentioned that you were in a session earlier this week with was it a director or somebody?
Yeah, there was it was advertised actually. There was a session through Northern Major in the University of Sunderland with Ridley Scott. Where he just kind of talked about for 2.5 hours actually just went through his film. He talked about Blade Runner, he talked about Alien, and he talked about how he got into industry and coming from the northeast of England and then working on stuff like The Martian, and his later films as well. So I've kind of done that this week. And in terms of my productions, I'm working on a factual piece, a factual film about ultra running at the moment.
Yeah.
So, and there's, again, like I said, you've got to work as a director. There's many things can go wrong with your production. And on it, I've done quite a bit. And I'm now in post-production, so the final stages. And I'm now thinking, is the edit too long? Can I trim things down, or do I need to add a few more elements to it? I want to color grading a bit, and is the exposure and the grade going to be right? So yeah, there's always loads of doubts and insecurities along the way.
And I guess with a really long project, which filmmaking tends to be, there's a lot of there's not a lot of way for that doubt to creep in and second guess yourself and things like that.
Oh yeah. I think when you're doing something creatively, you always think, you always think, is this going to be any good? Is anybody going to be interested? Nobody wants to make something that like people turn off and they don't want to watch.
Yeah.
Or yeah, you've got to just kind of put yourself out there. But I think one of the driving things is, the sort of driving force is, can you make something really good that people absolutely love? And if you do that, and that can lead to something else, and that can lead to something else again in another project.
Yeah.
So it just depends how much you want to do it, and I think sometimes if you kind of care about it, you've just got to kind of put yourself there.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work out, and if it's not as good as what you hope, then and so what? You just move on to your next project and just learn from the experience.
But that touches, just to kind of wrap up, that kind of touches onto the second point on the list of tips that you said, where it's practice as well, isn't it? It's about learning what your strengths and weaknesses were in that last project and bringing it through into the next one, isn't it? So you don't make those mistakes.
Yeah, and just having a resilience. Honestly, resilience is in filmmaking it's a really big thing, because if things don't work out and if people don't like what you've made, or it might be like a 1 minute tiny little micro short film, and for example, but if people don't like it, you can't, you're going to be sort of hurt by that, but what you kind of think is, well, I'm never going to make anything ever again. They didn't like it, and I'm rubbish, and because it's easy to have those thoughts, isn't it? So there's a huge amount of resilience involved, where it's like, right, well, I've got over that now. People didn't like it too much, and I'll move on to the next one, and I'll make it better.
Yeah.
Learn from that.
Yeah.
And maybe they don't like that one as well, and you make another one and you make it better. But maybe there'll be one that the audience does like and people do like, because you've learned so much along the way.
Yeah.
Just in trying to have a bit of an emotional resilience to it is it's kind of key, and it's something that you've just got to kind of learn along the way, I think, as well. You've got to take like audience sort of reaction on the chin a little bit and like learn from it. But yeah, it's often, if you think it's a criticism of me, I've made some mistakes there when I was creating that thing, and so resilience is like one of the key things as well. If everybody expects people to sort of make mistakes along the way, and that's absolutely fine. You just got to learn from them.
We'll make mistakes all the time, don't we? And like you say, it's the learning that's the main thing there, because if we don't learn, then you're just going to repeat and repeat and repeat, aren't you? So
yeah.
Right, Ian, I think we're coming up to our half an hour slots, mate. So I think we'll let you go, because you'll probably have a lot of work on your desk there. Really appreciate that. How's your injury coming along? Is it getting better?
It's actually, it was really. I did it on Saturday. But pulled the hamstring on Saturday, and it was just exactly the same until about Wednesday, and I thought, it's going to go on for months and months. But the last 2 days, it's sort of like it's been a lot better. So I'm thinking maybe I won't be out from running quite as long. Maybe I'll be out from running maybe 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Possibly. Maybe it's got at least another week, but it feels much better today. So I'm still limping a bit, and I cannot run, but I can walk without it being really uncomfortable. So thanks, Leon. It's getting there.
Well, that'll give me a bit of time to get up to scratch. We'll go out for a run in a few weeks' time when I get my fitness back with scratch.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe 2 weeks is good. 2 weeks is probably a good sort of time. I'll let you know about that.
Awesome, mate. Well, thanks very much. Really appreciate your time. You've got some really useful tips there. and it's been brilliant. Thank you so much, Ian, and I'll catch up with you later. All right.
Thanks, Leon,
Right,
and
cheers,
all
man.
the best, everybody. Good luck.
Cheers, mate. Thank you. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Right. Just trying to close this session down. Just bear with us 1 minute.
I'm going now. See you.
See you later, mate. Ciao.
Bye.
Right. Right. There we are. All right, then that's great. And not too many technical issues there, apart from this current one where I've got the Zoom chat right in the middle of the screen. All right, perfect. So that was Ian, a lecturer at some university, and he gave us some really good tips and we had a really good chat there about storyboarding and how important storyboarding is for filmmaking. Okay, so we're coming up to our halfway mark, guys, so I reckon we should have maybe a 10-minute break now. We've got an activity booked in, which we always tend to do, always trying to set up a little activity just to kind of apply some of the tips and skills that we've picked up halfway through the class. So I'm going to do another little live sketching activity in the next half of the class, and I'm going to look at maybe you guys can suggest maybe a very basic scene, a very basic story. So I was thinking, well, I won't tell you what I was thinking. I'll leave it down to you guys. See if you, the first person to get into the chat and give me a very quick and basic story, or an idea. I'll try and sketch that, but try and include some of the hints and tips that we've picked up today in order to make it a bit more suspenseful. Okay, so that's what we're going to try and do in the next half. So it is now 2:05. If we reconvene at 2:15, that'll give me enough time to get a drink and set up the camera, and we'll do a little sketching activity. All right, I've got a couple more slides to show you as well about some of the other techniques that we can incorporate into building a suspenseful story. All right, so come back at 14:15, and then we'll resume the next half of the class. All right, okay guys, I'll see you in a bit. Alright guys, welcome back to the next half of the session 4, intro into storyboarding. First half of the session, we looked at, let's have a quick scoot back, we looked at what we covered last week. Not going to go over that again, all that information is there. We looked at a little bit about suspense and drama, because that's what the main focus of this session is all about today. We had a really good chat with Ian McPake, who is a senior lecturer in broadcasting at Sunderland University. He's a lecturer in broadcasting and digital media at the Sunderland University, and he gave us some really cool tips on how to storyboard, why we storyboard, and what we can do to kind of improve our storytelling through our storyboard. So that was a really good chat there. I think I asked him for 10 minutes of his time. We ended up chatting for half an hour, and I could have chatted for another half an hour with him. He's really knowledgeable, and he gave us some really good important information there. So we're looking at suspense now, guys. So one of the ways we can add suspense in our films and stories is to hold that information back from the audience. Give them enough there to be intrigued, but not tell them the whole story. Okay, and that's something that Ian kind of reiterated when we were chatting there. He was talking about keeping that audience engaged. Okay, so that's something that we need to really think about when creating our storyboards. Let me just go down. I'm operating two screens at the minute. I've got myself a little bit confused here. Here we go. Right. Okay. So 5 little avenues we can explore when it comes to building suspense. We looked at music. That is used in almost every film and drama that we see on TV now. I'm not going to really delve into that so much because that's probably another 5 sessions, and it's not really my expertise. But music does play a very major role in building suspense, and I just urge you, if that's something that you're interested in, I urge you to kind of look into that a little bit more detail. It could be a case of finding some royalty-free music, suspenseful music, or finding something online that you could download when it comes to assembling your film, or just having some ideas of some kind of suspenseful music that you would like to include, that you could detail in the bottom of your storyboards, where the description elements are to your storyboard. We talked about emotion, building emotion within that scene, and we touched on that a little bit last session, and that is really important when it comes to building that suspense, building the emotion with the character, understanding a little bit about the character, so you know what's at stake within the story, and building that emotional connection from the audience as well. Okay. We looked at extreme decisions that create that interest as well, that the character within the story that they might decide to do something a little bit drastic, and it makes you question them. It makes you want to know more about what's going to happen next. We looked at space, and Ian talked about space quite in detail, about different camera shots, and he talked about learning your toolbox and learning your trade as a filmmaker, if you like. Well, certainly from his perspective, learning the different shot types and shot sizes, he referred to them as, and understanding your composition. And he mentioned that composition in, say, the story that he built up in our discussion about somebody in a record shop frantically looking for a rare record, and he set the scene earlier, talking about somebody just leisurely looking through a selection of records, and then he flipped it and gave us a kind of painted a picture about somebody frantically looking and using as a director who may use close-up shots and quick cutaways to different camera angles to create that suspense. So it's the space and what we do with the camera is really important in building that kind of tension within your story. And then time, we touched on that last week in terms of punctuating your story and making sure you give your story enough time for the audience to kind of process it. Okay, so these are little areas that we might want to consider when we talk about building suspense. And we quickly looked at, before we had a chat with Ian, we quickly looked at controlling that level of information in order to not give the audience everything at once. Okay, so we talked about the audience at the beginning of the story. The audience gets answers, and the actor, so the audience knows the answer, but the character doesn't, and we want to try and understand what happens when the actor or the character finds those answers. We talked about a different scenario where the character has the answers, but we don't know what those answers are, so that keeps us kind of hanging on to the story. And then we talked about scenarios where the audience and the character have the answers, and we kind of go through this journey in tandem to and observe how the character deals with a certain scenario. And one example that I come up with, as one film example that I came up with, was the film Limitless, where a guy actually I've got the link here. I'm not even going to bother trying to explain it. Let's have a quick look at this quick trailer into Limitless. Again, this is one of my favorite films, another one of my favorite films, and he's a quick little overview of this, and this will be a good example of the journey that we go through as an audience and as a character at the same time. Here we go.
Medication.
See that guy? That's me. My excuse for looking like this? I'm a writer.
Eddie, maybe it's time to let the writing go.
But just in case you think nothing ever happened to me.
Eddie Mora!
Hey! Tell me about this book. Well, how much have you written of it?
Not one word.
Well, I suppose I can help you with that.
You know how they say that we can only access 20% of our brain? This lets you access all of it. They've had clinical trials and it's FDA approved.
All right, just out of curiosity, and that's all. I was blind, but now I see.
A tablet a day, and I was limitless. I now had cultural appetites.
Since when do you speak Italian?
I finished my book in 4 days.
I'd like to renegotiate my advance.
Math became useful.
From 12,000 to 2.3 million in 10 days. I'm baffled by this guy. So, Eddie Mora, you do know you're a freak. What's your secret?
Medication.
So there we have it, guys. That's a really good example there of the audience going on a journey with the character and discovering the story along the way. Okay, so controlling that level of information, who gets what when, is quite important when it comes to assembling our stories. Okay, so I'm going to click on the next slide, which is the activity 1. Now, my really poor, very not very interesting topic before I got some input from you guys was to create a storyboard showing the process of making a cup of coffee. Boring, so we'll get rid of that. And we've got a few ideas here from some of our learners on the chat, And let's have a quick look here. Let's see. So Susan and Charlotte have both got some really cool ideas, and I think it'll be useful to combine them both. So Susan's idea to create a suspenseful type of storyboard is to somebody finds a stuffed wallet, and they try and return it without anything but the description of the owner. Okay, so that's a really cool starting point. And if we quickly touch back on what Ian was talking about in the first half of the class, he was talking about using that in his tip 1, using a script or half a page or a paragraph or some portion of text that kind of describes what the idea of the story is. So I feel we've naturally done that, so that's really, really good, and that's what we're going to try and use as our script, our idea to create the storyboard. So that was Susan's, and then we've got Charlotte's talking about offering a suggestion. A guy walking down the street, and then by accident he steps into a portal into another world and is trying to figure out how to get back into his world. That reminds me of a series when I was a youngster. It was Quantum Leap. It reminds me a little bit about that, like that's similar kind of storyline. So I think what we're going to try and do is combine those two ideas. I'll update that activity, and we're going to look at some of my pure sketching again. So if you just bear with me, I'll just quickly set up. And we'll get cracking, shall we? So let's get the drawing on. Here we go, that's my hand. Hopefully that hasn't frozen. And let's see where we are. Let's have a quick look at this. It looks as though this is frozen a little bit, so let's get rid of that and try it again. I might need some assistance. We've got loads of arrows going all over the place at the minute. If you just bear with me, guys, I'm just setting this camera up again, so we can start this activity. Let's have a look. Here's me getting a little bit cocky with me technology, thinking that the first half of the session went quite well with our Zoom conversation with Ian, and I think I've kind of got a little bit overconfident, and technology is letting me down a little bit. So what we can do, while I try and sort this out, I'll change the screen a minute. What we can do in the chat, if we can have a look at trying to combine the two ideas together. So at what point can we kind of enter the portal that Charlotte suggests in order to kind of create that suspense? So in terms of Susan's idea, how can we combine the wallet idea with Charlotte's suggestion of entering a portal? Could we enter a portal by opening the wallet instead? Could that be it? Could that be the way forward? Looks as though we can see Haytham's hand on mine.
You can't see it on this though.
Not on that. I can see it on my camera. So we get in there.
I just need to change off. You're on Zoom, that's all.
Right.
Because you're in the meeting with Peggy, so I just need to quit that.
Let's have a look. Right, you're getting somewhere. So I think that might be a good starting point. We could maybe find that wallet, and finding a wallet isn't that suspenseful, but I think that definitely entering the portal would be. So maybe something strange happens when we open the wallet in order to get sucked into this other world. So I think that might be a really good starting point. There we do. Oh, we've got a camera up there. Get this phone sorted.
There you go, mate. And there you go.
So, is this the...
Do you want that back on?
Yeah.
Ah, sorry, man.
That's where we're...
It's on.
Ah, right, here we go.
You might just need to take it off and flip it upside down.
Flip the camera upside down.
It's the window that we need here. And do you want to add into this screen, or do you want to add into the drawn one?
The drawn one, please. That would be brilliant.
There you go. Oh, hang on. No, I'm talking out my backside.
Here we go. Yeah, we're on. Thanks very much, Ethan. Cheers, mate. Thank you. There we go. Right, fantastic. Back in the room. Right. So let's position the camera here. I'm just going to quickly tune into our comments again just before we get started to make sure I'm including everyone's ideas into our activity. Right, it looks as though we've got a collaboration going on between our learners as well, which is absolutely fantastic. So we like to see, and we'd love to see what work you guys get involved with as well. If you wouldn't mind us showing us that would be absolutely brilliant in the future. So yeah, any help we might be able to give you, please let us know. Just setting up the camera now. There we go. I think we're getting there now. Okay. Maybe you put maybe the portal can open when the wallet opens. I think that's a really good idea. Okay, so I'm going to start off with I'm going to write a script here, and when I say script, I just mean gonna just quickly write down what the idea is. So the idea is that person finds wallet. Let's do it in bullet format to make things a little bit more. A zombie and a Doberman, right? We've got more characters coming into this story here. So let's have a. So person finds wallet. Person opens wallet. And a portal opens into another world. So we've got the portal, we've got the wallet idea, we've got the wallet opening with the portal opening with the wallet. Right, now going back to Charlotte's idea. Let's have a quick look. Right, we've got the Doberman. The Doberman idea. Susan's put another idea in there. Okay, so we've got the guy walks down the street and by accident steps into a portal in another world, trying to figure out how to get back. So that's key. Person tries to find way back into his world, his/her world. And then let's incorporate two little things at the end. We'll have a zombie in the portal, in portal, stopping. We might need to come up with a right. Somebody give me on our chat. Somebody give me some names of the main character who's lost. Give me a name, a suggestion for the main character. Stopping. So there's a zombie in the portal, stopping person from going home. And then we've got a Doberman. And we already have a name for a Doberman, Diego. Helps person return home. So this is our story. A zombie Doberman, right? I think this is getting really complex now. Maybe Maybe it depends on where we get on with this story. Maybe there's an element of this story where the zombie bites the Doberman. I don't know. And I'll just put a little note there to see how we get on. Maybe that can be an addition later. Zombie Doberman. So here we go then. Let me see if I can make this a little bit better for you guys so you can see the overall picture a little bit better. I've just lifted the camera up, and we've got a little bit of a delay on the there we go. I've just lifted the camera up a little bit so you can see what's going on. Probably need to tilt it down a touch if I can. That's better. Right, hopefully you'll be able to see a lot better what I'm doing now. So the first, I asked a question, guys, for the first half of the class. I asked what this box was. Can anybody tell me what this box is? Remember we talked about this when we create a storyboard. Storyboard's made of a box like this where we draw our picture and then we have our description underneath. What was that box called? I think I mentioned it when I was talking to Ian earlier as well. So I'm going to draw my first box. Okay. What kind of shot do you think? Remember Ian said before about knowing what's in our toolbox. What kind of shot do you think we should have in this first box? So there's two questions for you guys. What is the name of that box? What do we call that when we come to making a storyboard? And what do you think the opening scene? What kind of shot should that be? So I'm going to leave that as a question mark at the minute, and I'll fill that back in once you guys get back. There we go. Susan, Charlotte said it was called a panel. My apologies, Charlotte. I didn't. There's lots of chat going on today, and I missed that one. Brilliant. Yeah, it's a panel. That's perfect. So that's what that is. Thanks very much for getting in there. So froze on the screen for a minute, so I'll see if I can sort that out. But I'm still here, and you can still hear me, which is great. The next box then, wide. Yeah, it could be a wide shot, and it is an establishing shot. That's brilliant. So the establishing shot then. Okay, so what? Let me just see if I can sort this out first of all. Here we go. Oh, we're back on. We're back on. Hopefully this is working. Okay, so we're going to have a wide shot perhaps. We're probably going to have an establishing shot. Okay, the camera's frozen. Is it still wide establishing shot? Then a close up picking up the wallet. Brilliant. Okay, so let's do that. Maybe we could have a shot of somebody walking down the street first as well. So maybe we'll whack that at the beginning. Let me just sort this camera out, guys, and then we'll get back into it very, very shortly. There we go. What I think's happened there, I just think I'm using my phone as the camera today, and I think my phone is kind of screen locked there. So let's have a look at that. There, that's that sorted. So hopefully this is back up and running. There it is. Okay. and I'll just reposition that so you can see maybe a little bit better. Camera's upside down. Oh, this is fantastic today, isn't it? There we go. Happy days. Boom, bada bing. Right. So, there we go, guys. We've got our script there, which is really, really brief. Bullet points. I always like to work with bullet points because I waffle on quite a lot, as you can probably imagine, and bullet points keeps me a little bit more focused on what I need to do or say. So, that's really, really important for me anyway. What else have we got here? So we've got a whole lot of issues going on with the camera. That's what's going on at the minute. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to do the first tip that Ian suggested. We're going to move away from this sketching for now because we're having a few little issues here. And yes, the screen is white. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my lovely little face on the screen. Take away the drawing. Here I'm back in the room. What we're going to look at now, because we're having a few issues with the camera at the minute, what we're going to have a look at now is adding some. We're going to write the script. That's what we're going to do. Okay. And what I want you guys to do is, it seems to be quite a lot of chat going on in the and suggestions going on in the chat section of our YouTube. So let's write down this script. Give us some of that basic information in order to assemble our storyline, our storyboard. Okay, so if I write this script down, if we write this script down together, maybe for our final session next week, you guys can have a go at doing the storyboard for this script, and then I'll do mine as well, and then we can spend 15 minutes, 20 minutes on the next session looking at what we've all done and comparing, because you know, as with anything in the arts sector, everyone's going to have their own different interpretations. I think it'll be quite interesting to do that. Okay, so if we remember that this session is all about creating suspense, and we've got a few tips on how to create suspense. Maybe we can put some notes in that script to try and offer some suggestions on how we could do that. Okay, so we have a combination of two people's IDs in our chat. We've got a person finds a wallet. That's the first part of the story. We have a person opens the wallet. We have and a portal opens, portal to another world opens. Then we have person tries to find their way back. Person is stopped by a zombie. Person befriends a Doberman and the Doberman Doberman, and the Doberman is called, of course, Diego, and he helps the person find their way back home. Okay, do we have any more suggestions, any more details? Now, we've got quite a cool story here. Do we have any more suggestions there on what we can use and what things and tools we can use in order to add suspense to this story? What I'll do here is underneath I can maybe like highlight some suggestions that we can use underneath here, and now so with the person finding the wallet, that's really, I'll tell you what we can do. Let's highlight the main bits. Let's highlight the main bits that are gonna be areas where we can they're gonna be areas that will offer opportunities for suspense. Okay, so can anybody give some suggestions on what areas might offer opportunities to build suspense? I think this bit is really key. I think this bit, I'm going to highlight that. That's going to be really, really important for to build suspense. Now, how could we do that? How would we build suspense there? Maybe we can. Maybe the camera can do something funny. Maybe the camera can start shaking. Maybe we have some sound there. This is definitely an opportunity here. A person is stopped by a zombie. This is definitely an opportunity to add some suspense, and maybe we can have some extreme close-ups here. Maybe some quick flicking between shots, close up of person's worried face, maybe sweat and fear, extreme close up of eyes. Okay, suspense, portal opening for the first time, guy trying to work out what it is. Yeah, that's really good. So thank you for that, Susan. Maybe here we were talking about, before the camera played up, we're talking about an establishing shot here, weren't we? Establishing shot. So Susan's suggested here about a portal opening for the first time, and that's where we've got a bit of suspense there. Susan, have you got any suggestions how we can incorporate some suspense into that scene that you're talking about? Have you got any suggestions on that little a little bit more detail on how we can add some suspense into that portal opening? Charlotte has offered a bit more detail here. The Doberman that he befriends turns into a zombie and he gets very upset about it. I mean, that's a really good twist to it as well, isn't it? It's not a very straightforward story of what I wrote here. He befriends a Doberman, Diego, Let's say Diego gets bitten, maybe gets bitten by the zombie, and I've got another. Actually, I've got a better idea. Diego, just combining Charlotte's idea here. Diego befriends a zombie. So the person befriends a friendly zombie Doberman, Diego. That's it. So what we've got here is the person is stopped by a zombie, okay? And I'll call this, for clarity, zombie A. And then we can talk about the person befriends a friendly zombie Doberman, a zombie Doberman, and that's Diego, okay? So that's just to avoid the confusion between Diego and the zombie. But in this section here, we can have another element of surprise or suspense when you might have the person sees zombie A, runs away, think they're safe, he/she is safe, and then get cornered by a zombie Doberman. Okay, zombie Doberman Diego help the person hide from zombie A, and say the zombie Doberman Diego helps the person hide from zombie A, and the person realizes that Diego is a friendly zombie dog. Let's just okay. So this little bit here, what I've wrote here, isn't really suspenseful. It's just where it's kind of the anticlimax to that, isn't it? Where the person realizes that this zombie dog isn't a threat, and they're actually going to try and help them. Right, let's have a look here. We've got a few more suggestions. Okay, so we've got some more suggestions here. The close-up of the person's face, quizzical face inside the portal appears totally black. Okay, that's brilliant when he gets sucked in, I guess. That could be used in that. That's from Susan, brilliant. Charlotte talks about the guy can get sucked in by the wallet into this portal. That's really good, because that's actually what I was thinking at the beginning. Okay, so I think we've got a really, really good basis there of a story that we can use, or a script that we can use for for storyboard. And I think without planning this, I don't think this could have worked any better in terms of using our tips that Ian gave us earlier on. He said, get your script together, just so we know which direction we're going with the story, and then we can then move into our storyboard after that. We didn't try that the last couple of sessions. We just dove straight into making our storyboard, and that's really exciting because it is an opportunity for you to get your ideas out there on paper. But this really removes that element of, or the issues of drawing, and lets you just put your ideas down on paper without drawing first, and then you can attach the visuals after that. So I think we've got a really good script there. So how about we use that script as a basis for a storyboard. Let's say we'll have a challenge of, say, 9 panels. It's going to be quite a challenge. Let's say we'll put the script into a 9-panel storyboard to create suspense, and the main element of that is to create suspense. I guess that's going to be our homework for today's session. So let's have a little review on what we've done today. I'll just make this text a little bit smaller so it all fits on that one page. Again, this will be made available for you guys on our YouTube channel, so you can download this script and the presentation for today's session. You can download that and use that to work from. Let's have a little quick review, shall we? So we had a quick look back on our last session, which we did, and then we looked at where we are within the 5-week course. We're actually on session 4 now, and our main focus today was how do we create suspense. In order to do that, we've had a really good informative chat with a senior lecturer in broadcasting digital media at Sunderland Uni. That's Ian McPake, and he gave us some really good tips into how and why we use storyboarding, and what we can do in order to make that what we can do to make it the most effective tool in order to communicate that suspense. Just bear with me 1 minute, guys. We're looking as though we're getting a data issue with our streaming. Hopefully you guys are still seeing this. Okay. We learned today that suspense is about holding something back. It's about rewind very quickly. It's about doing this, isn't it? It's about dangling that carrot, dangling that mystery in front of our audience and getting them to kind of follow our path, which is our storyline or the storyboard. Okay, what else did we do? We looked at basically all ordering our information and being mindful, of who gets to know what in the story. Is it going to be the audience who gets to know the answers, and we know what the answers are, but the character or actor doesn't? Do we give the actor the information and we are watching what the actor does, or are we going on a journey as the audience with the character and journey together? So that's one way we use 3 different methods we can employ to create suspense and create that intrigue, create that interest in order to keep that carrot, that little mystery bag of whatever is in there, that suspense, in order to kind of lead the audience along that story that you're trying to tell them. We watched a couple of little trailers, one of them being the Truman Show, and we looked at the Truman Show as a really good example of the audience knowing the answers before the character, and the character then discovers the answer, and that intrigue and that suspense allows us to stay tuned in order to figure out what that character is going to do. We also watched a trailer on the film Limitless, where we see a character figuring out this story and this journey by taking this remarkable pill that allows him to do exceptional things. Okay, so we've had a really interactive session today. I'm really chuffed to bits with all the chat that's going on in the live chat section of our our YouTube page. It's been brilliant. We've got some really good suggestions, and we formed our own little script here that we're going to kind of use as the basis of our little homework task, I guess, on how we can build a storyboard out of this set of these bullet points. Okay, so don't feel as though you need to stick to this. Maybe you want to take it as inspiration and go off in one direction or go off in a different direction, but I'll probably use this one. We're going to try and limit ourselves to 9 panels, and we're going to try and see what we can come up with in terms of this script. We'll come back next week for our final session, and we'll spend the first half of the session really having a look at what we've done and the tools that we've employed in order to create that suspense. Okay, remember, suspense can, like Ian mentioned, can be used using shots and composition. It can be used, if we go back earlier in the back in our little presentation, it can be used from music. So you can put little references in the storyboard description as to what type of music you would like to put in to build that suspense. Characters' behavior can be used in that to communicate suspense, and like I said, the camera work and what we do with time. And judging by the story that we've created in that script, time could be played with quite a lot, because we're talking about a portal there, so we can go forward and back in time and things like that, which would be quite a cool thing to do as well. So that kind of brings us on to today, the end of today's session. All I'm doing now is quickly adding the final little bits of slides to our to today's session, just to point you back, as always, to our enrollment and survey forms. Remember, our enrollment form allows us to be able to demonstrate to our funders at the National Lottery that we are engaging learners, which you guys are. So that's fantastic. If you could it would really help us out, and it would help out a lot of other people. If you could fill these in, basic information in there. It takes a couple of minutes, and it just to kind of enroll onto the course, and then we can demonstrate to our providers that we are actually hitting the people that we need to deliver to in order to achieve our funding aims. Okay, and then we've got a survey, which we would love you guys to fill in order to get your feedback on how you think today's session's gone. Okay, so there's a few little questions there. Most of them are ticky boxes. Please just fill that in. That really helps us kind of develop our sessions and get your feedback into how we can make them better for you in the future. All right, so we've got those at the end. Activity 1 is going to be our homework, and if you could send your images of your 9-panel suspense storyboard to our to Media Savvy on our Facebook, or through our other social media channels, we'll be able to pick them up in next Friday's session and see what we've all come up with. All right. So I didn't manage to find any. I didn't manage to have a look at any further information. Or it's really free learning. It's free learning opportunities that I like to try and hit you with at the end of each session, and I didn't manage to come across any this week. But what I would like you to do is just have a little Google out. That's all I do. Have a quick Google out there to see if you can find anything that we haven't really covered. What we really enjoy is our interaction with our learners. And if you guys have got any suggestions on where you can find free learning online, please let us know, and we'll put that on our next and final presentation, and I'll see what I can come up with for our last session next week. You can also send your storyboards to Leon at mediasavvycic.co.uk. That's Leon at mediasavvycic.co.uk. Just email me those storyboards, and I'll have a look when you've done them, and then I'll put them onto the final sessions slideshow, so we can all have a look at those. All right. As always, guys, have a really good weekend. I'm not sure what the weather's going to be like, but hopefully we'll be able to enjoy some fresh air and get out there and do a bit of walking or whatever. Enjoy your weekend. Be safe. And thanks very much for joining us. Okay. Enjoy your weekend, and I'll see you next Friday.